California's San Fernando Valley. I've driven nearly 2 hours in traffic from my home near Disneyland to be here. Ironically, I'm up here in the valley for Disneyland. And that's because just off of this otherwise ordinary street here in Sherman Oaks, California, an old Sports Authority building has been transformed into the ultimate, one-of-a-kind, once-in-a-lifetime Disneyland exhibit. That's from Disneyland. Look at this. 40,000 square feet of space in there have been transformed by an auction house called Eaton Galleries into the ultimate pop-up exhibit that's from Disneyland. And people have been lining up like crazy to get in here. And they've been lining up for weeks. In fact, there's only 10 days or so left of this exhibit. So there's no time to waste. Let's get in there. All right, guys, prepare yourselves because in we go. And would you look at the size of this place? It's gargantuan. It's ginormous. The question at this pop-up exhibit is not what they have, but what don't they have? There is literally so much stuff here that I was in here the other day for at least 4 hours and I still don't feel like I saw it all. This is crazy, and the craziest part about all of this is that all this stuff belongs to one guy. That's right, keep in mind that everything we're about to see in here comes from one massive collection, all started by a man named Richard Kraft. The collection actually has an amazing backstory. It all started as a way to sort of recapture memories of going to Disneyland as a kid with his brother, who had recently passed away, but soon what started as a way to reconnect with his brother became a way to bond with his son Nicky. And the collection that started with one giant Autopia poster kept growing and growing and growing. But just like the collection kept growing, so did Nicky, all grown up. And they decided it was time to pass all this stuff on to other owners to enjoy. But instead of just auctioning this stuff off quietly and privately, they threw this crazy month-long pop-up exhibit and event, which by the way is free for all of us to come and check out the stuff, see mementos from the past, and relive our own memories of Disneyland. Where do you even start here? Maybe we should start from the beginning of the collection over here with some concept art. Very, very early Disneyland concept art. How about this, for example, huh? Look at these incredible actual pencil drawings of the castle, the teacups, Dumbo, early ideas for Monstro the whale. Look at that one. You would have been able to walk into that one. And perhaps most amazing of all, concept artwork for things that were never built at Disneyland at all. Dude, these are dated 1954. Any one of these could have become a Disneyland attraction. As a matter of fact, if you look at this concept artwork for the old mill here and see people riding around the windmill blades, that did become an attraction at Disneyland Paris. The old mill's still there, although you can't ride around the windmill blades anymore. That's amazing. It almost happened at the original Disneyland. Ooh, look at those Donald Duck bumper boats. It's so incredible looking at this stuff. It's crazy, but it's even crazier thinking, how do you come to own something like that? Well, that's not all. They have tons of other concept artwork, a huge number of maps, posters, advertising materials. You could spend hours looking at this stuff. And that's just the beginning of the collection. Look over here. Now we're getting to the good stuff. Not stuff about the parks, but stuff from the parks. Look at this. It's the Global Van Lines truck from Disneyland. This is the actual real truck that was parked on Main Street, USA for a long time. Decades, I think. Global Van Lines was a Disneyland sponsor, and I recently showed you some vintage pictures of this truck in the parks. This is the very same one. Designed by my good friend Bob Gurr. Although, as he told me the other night at his house, he did not actually build it. They had someone else do that. Thousands and thousands of people used to climb aboard the front seat of this truck and have their photo taken at Disneyland. And now here it is getting auctioned off. And who knows where it's gonna go next. Just this alone being here is an amazing piece of Disneyland history and would be an honor to get up close to. That's amazing. But as amazing as it is, it's hard to stay focused on the Global Van Lines truck when right next to it is a giant glowing D. Look at the size of that D. From 1963 to 1999. 1969, this gargantuan glowing D was up on one of the towers of the Disneyland Hotel. Now, I literally lived right behind the Disneyland Hotel, and my grandparents only lived about 1 block away, so that glowing D was a big part of my early life. Literally, because it's huge. Seriously, look at the size of that. Where do you keep something like that, huh? I never thought I'd see that again. Oh, look at this. It's one of the life preservers from the old marina at Disneyland Hotel. That place used to be a lot cooler than it is today. Whoa, look at this old aerial photo of Disneyland. It's almost 1 alley tall. They've got a lot of things like that. Lots of other advertising materials, even more concept art. Blueprints of Main Street Station. Whoa, and check out these signs from Main Street, USA, including a menu from the Plaza Inn. That's crazy. Ooh, breakfast was only $7.95. Ooh, and here's one from the Carnation Ice Cream Parlor. Oh, and there's something from Goofy's Kitchen. Ooh, the Plaza Inn from the 90s. Spaghetti and English pot roast. That's what Allie would want right there. Seriously, there's tons of stuff in here and no way to show it all to you. I don't want to show you all the small stuff. It would just take too long. But there are a few special little things, like look at the Disneyland Target game that came with a gun. Not gonna get a toy like that at Disneyland anymore. And seriously, there's case after case of merchandise like that. And in between, look at this. It's a Main Street window display. Dude, how awesome is that? And it's so old school. This one is from the 1970s. Speaking of the 70s, you know what opened up in the 70s? Walt Disney World. And that is represented by this epic ice cream cart. 3 nephews from Duckburg. How cool is that? A 90s Disney World ice cream cart. What a crazy random thing to own. All right, let's go across the hall. These are things from Main Street, USA. But over here we have things from Adventureland. Look at that. It's a flower basket from the Tiki Room. Up here is an original Jungle Cruise boat sign. A sign from the Tahitian Terrace in Disneyland. And look at this Jungle Cruise sign down here. Oh, that's awesome. There are real full-size Adventureland posters everywhere back here. This one's a rare one from the summer of 1966. And there are all kinds of props from the park. Look at this. Do you know what this is? It's the actual original organ from the Swiss family tree house. The one that would play the Swiska polka. Wow, that thing's seen some better days. I'm honestly surprised that even still exists. I mean, it is made of wood and spent 37 years in the parks outdoors. That is crazy. Oh, and look at this over here, starting with the Enchanted Tiki Room sign, the one that tells you when the next show is they put out in front. That is amazing. That is epic, but so are these. The Disneyland Hotel Jungle Cruise RC boats. This is something I've always dreamed of owning, but for an estimated $4,000 to $5,000, I don't know, I'm gonna have to look elsewhere for a Jungle Cruise boat. Sorry. All right, check this out. The Adventureland swag continues. Look at this sign from the Tiki Room. Our last performance will be at 12 noon tomorrow. And on the other side of the sign is this. And look what's behind it. Speaking of the Tiki Room, it's an actual animated Jose. Wake up, Jose. He's not waking up. He's just sitting there. Oh, never mind. He's awake. He's listening. Always listening. And perhaps what he's listening to are the 2 Tiki Room drummers on either side of him. These are usually way up in the roof of the Tiki Room. These, of course, are just replicas, but they're still really cool. And they're still for sale. Jose back there, though. That is a real Jose from the Tiki Room. Looks like Jose flew the coop, huh? All right, that pretty much sums it up for the Adventureland portion. Now it's time for us to fly over to the Tomorrowland section. And they've got everything in here. Everything from attraction signs to attraction posters. You know, the real ones. Look how many of these things there are. Down to concept artwork, even for the construction billboards. There's even an epic sign. And an old menu from the Space Place restaurant. You guys remember the Space Place? Now that is a throwback. I want to show you everything in this section, but I just can't. As much as I love the old school original Endor posters from Star Tours and all this concept artwork and the posters, how can I look at that when all of this is sitting right next door? And the first thing my eye is drawn to here is that. A beautiful yellow people mover. This was my all-time favorite ride from Disneyland. Walt Disney's futuristic transportation system. The most beautiful, wonderful part of the 1967 version of Tomorrowland. Also designed by my good friend Bob Gurr. No trip to Disneyland was complete without a ride on the people mover. Oh, the Disneyland version was so cool. They had the automatic opening doors here, and then this roof would tilt back so you could get in and out. When I came here the other day for the first time, I only got choked up seeing two things. One of them was this people mover. It's weird how stuff from Disneyland can like shoot memories right back into your brain. I got the most vivid picture in my head of riding in this thing with my dad high above Tomorrowland. This is the greatest ride ever. I don't know why. And not just while you were riding it, it was the greatest ride to ever exist at Disneyland, period. It was so cool just seeing it going round and round Tomorrowland. They should have never, ever gotten rid of it. Especially not for this thing. Oh, that's right. Parked right next to this beautiful, beloved people mover is the thing that killed it. The Disneyland Rocket Rod. This is what they replaced the people mover vehicles with. I mean, in theory it made sense. Instead of these little trains going around slowly above Tomorrowland, why not replace them with a faster vehicle, a thrill ride? Guests would be strapped into this 90s steampunk looking contraption and virtually fly over Tomorrowland. It looked totally ugly, but it was fun. It was a good idea in theory. The problem was these darn things never worked. If my memory is correct, this ride was only open for a month before they closed it for several months just for repairs. And it would open, close, and then only a year or two later it was gone. There are probably a lot of engineering and technical reasons why the rocket rods never really worked out, including the shape of the track, etc., etc. But I'm telling you, even when this thing was working, the lines were so long to climb aboard one of these rocket rods, and the ride itself felt so short that it was not worth it. I never, ever thought I would ever see one of these again. Who in the world got this out of Disneyland, and then who in the world would keep and store it? I mean, it was okay to ride on, but it killed the people mover. Oh, that's right. You killed the best ride of all time, you. How dare you, Rocket Rod? You deserve what you got. Please bring back the people mover. I mean, come on, what looks better, this thing or that thing? Huh? That or this? This or that? Personally, for me, it's a no-brainer. I like too how the people mover is still beautiful and pristine, and the rocket rod's all banged up. You can tell they just made the ride out of foam with some weird plastic over the outside of it. Seems like it wasn't built to last right from the beginning. I guess I shouldn't be too hard on the rocket rods. After all, they were fun to ride on, even if they were a murderer. All right, I gotta walk away before I get too mad at this rocket rod thing over here, but luckily there's a lot to take my mind off of it. Look at this! It's a Space Mountain ride vehicle, an original one from 1977. Estimated $25,000 to $50,000 at auction. Wow, look at that. That's one of the original 1977 Disneyland version of Space Mountain ride vehicles. Think of the thousands upon thousands of people who whizzed through outer space in this ride vehicle and its friends. That is so crazy. Look at this. You can see where they added the speakers to the original ride vehicle so that they could play music behind your head while you were in outer space. It's crazy. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But I can remember when music in outer space was a newfangled invention. You darn kids in your outer space music. Now that's old school. 77. But you know what's even more old school than 77 is 1967. And this rocket here was all the rage back then. It's one of the original rocket jets. This is one of the very ones that flew over Tomorrowland in my childhood. Way high up over Tomorrowland. Way up above the people mover loading platform. So not only did you have the motion of the people movers everywhere, but you also had these spinning jets high up above it. This is one part of where my fear of heights was born. Wow, look at that. The old school headlight on the front that would light up, and then look in the cockpit. This was a very scary ride because there was no seatbelt, no strap in it. You would be sitting in here, you know, kids up front, dad in the back. But during the ride, it was leaned way over to the the outside when you were lower down. And I was always terrified, and I mean absolutely petrified, terrified, catatonic almost, that I was gonna fall out of that thing. And my dad and my brother would always make me go up and down. Ha, isn't this funny? Oh, we're gonna fall out, we're gonna fall out. No, we're not gonna fall out. And now these days, not only does my own son make me get into these things, you from time to time make me get into these things. My old enemy. The dang rocket jet. What's cool though is they don't just have a rocket jet from Disneyland. They've also got an original rocket jet back there from Walt Disney World. Just like the original Disneyland in California, Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom had its own version of those high spinning rockets above the People Mover. Only instead of being called the rocket jets, the Walt Disney World version was known as the Star Jets. In addition to having 3 rocket boosters on the back instead of just one, the Star Jets also had a wing. This was very, very futuristic design at the time. Looks an awful lot like the space shuttle, huh? Oh, well, think about this. The Star Jets first took flight at Walt Disney World in 1974. And the first space shuttle didn't launch until 1981, 7 years later. It's like they knew. That is awesome. 3 futuristic space vehicles right in a row right there. One from Florida, one from California, and one from outer space. Speaking of Tomorrowland rides, here's one that most people my age and younger will not remember at all. Look at that. See that tiny little Omni Mover? Almost looks like a Doom buggy from the Haunted Mansion, right? Except this was the original Disneyland Omni Mover ride, Adventure Through Inner Space. I know what you're thinking. Is this a concept model for the ride vehicle? But it's not. This is actually from the ride, because you would get in one of those things and a giant microscope would shrink you down, and this is what you'd become. Well, sort of. These were the tiny models that completed the illusion, making kids from all around the world think that the people in front of them entering the ride had actually been shrunk. Look at that. Allie, I found someone even smaller than you. All right, well, that's most of the stuff, at least the big stuff, in the Tomorrowland section. There's just one more thing. Remember how I was saying that this was half of the origins of my fear of heights? Well, the other half is just around the corner. Look at this thing. Do you know what this is? It's an original bucket ride vehicle from the old Skyway ride. This is another ride vehicle I remember getting into with my brother and my dad. Only instead of having happy memories of being inside of one of those things, all I remember is the terror. Oh, these things were so high up above the ground. They're always bouncing and swaying. Oh, my dad and my brother would be laughing. They would think it was so funny. Look at that. It says, "Do not swing cabin." That's all they ever did was swing the cabin. It's so scary. It's giving me anxiety just sitting in this thing. I'm conquering my fears, Allie. I'm conquering my fears. Okay, let me out. Let me out. Oh, that was the sweetest sound and the sweetest feeling, being out of there. Oh, okay. Before I forget, while we were cruising through this Tomorrowland section, we passed up a whole other land. We almost forgot Frontierland. I can't believe it. Canoe? Dude, look at the size of this thing. It's an actual old school Disneyland canoe. One of the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes. According to the sign, from the 1990s to the 2000s. That's wild. These things look a whole lot smaller on the rivers of America. This thing looks absolutely massive when it's out of water. Look how long it's taking Allie just to walk the length of the canoe down towards us. This thing is huge. I mean, unfreaking believably large. You gotta back up pretty dang far and have a pretty dang wide angle lens to see this entire thing. I was hoping to buy this, but I don't think it's gonna fit in our living room after all. Wow, and look what's behind the canoe. It's the animatronic dog from the Indian settlement along the rivers of America. Wow, this dog has seen a thing or two in his day outdoors on the rivers of America. There's a plug below him too, so I'm guessing he still wags his tail. It says the bidding is estimated around $5,000 to $7,000. Must be a purebred, huh? And look look at all this other stuff they've got out here from Frontierland. They've got one of the old school trash cans, an old school Mark Twain riverboat life preserver, some awesome menu signs from the Riverbell Terrace and from the Casa Mexicana. Not to mention all these huge, original, super impressive attraction posters. Oh, I want all of these. And look up there, the sign from Big Thunder Ranch. May it rest in peace. It's crazy to think that the Big Thunder Ranch is now an extinct attraction. And speaking of extinct attractions, look at this. It's the old Country Bear Playhouse entrance sign. Look at that. That looks a heck of a lot better than that Winnie the Pooh sign they have out there now, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. We like the Winnie the Pooh dark ride. There's a very nice dark ride. We ride it quite a lot. But nothing compares to the Country Bears. Blood on the saddle and blood all around. Ooh, look at this right here. That's from Fort Wilderness on Tom Sawyer Island. This was the sign on the flagpole out there talking about the American flag. And speaking of Tom Sawyer Island, look, and here's one of the old maps. Wow, I guess they used this sign here between 1957 and 59. That is quite a long time ago. And back then, before the Matterhorn, Tom and Huck's treehouse was known as the highest point in Disneyland. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Ooh, they got another one of those old school trash cans. This one's really beat up. Maybe I can pick up this one, huh? Estimated 800 to 1200. Who are we kidding? I'm broke. Well, I may not be able to buy any of this stuff, but I gotta tell you, I am having a very good time looking at it. Okay, one last look at the Frontierland stuff here. Soak it in. And then we can move on down towards our next land. New Orleans Square. And look at this. They have original Haunted Mansion stretch portraits on the wall. And they've turned it into an epic fun pick opportunity. Oh, that is pretty cool. People are lining up to get a fun pick in front of those stretching portraits. I don't blame them. Look at that. They got Richard and Nicky Kraft references right on that tombstone. Wow. Whoa, check this out next to those huge portraits. It's an actual door from the corridor of doors in the Haunted Mansion. Oh, come on. How much would you like to have that in your house, huh? That's one of those original pulsing and bendy doors. And look at this. Even more impressive. An old school doom buggy. This definitely looks like a Disney World one. I don't know why. Just something about it, like that padding in there. Let me see here. It is! It's a Disney World doom buggies. Now, apparently, doom buggies rarely ever break, so they rarely have ever left the parks. They're very hard to get a hold of. And this one could be ours for just $50,000 to $75,000. Oh, man. It's like torture knowing I can't afford any of this stuff. Oh, how cool. They've got a sign from the entryway to Pirates of the Caribbean. Let's see. Ooh, $5,000. Yeah, see, most of this stuff is well outside of our price range. But that's why it is so cool that they threw this exhibit together. I mean, what other opportunity would we ever have to get up close and personal with a collection like this? Oh man, look at that. It's Dumbo. And look at this. Look at the props from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. The Florida version, that is. Another thing they ripped out for Winnie the Pooh. Whoa, it's so bizarre seeing stuff from a dark ride out in the light of day. It's amazing how two-dimensional it is out here. It's awesome seeing the stuff from Mr. Toad's house. And it's also awesome seeing Mr. Toad's Satan back there. Look at that. It's Satan and a devil from Walt Disney World. I don't know why. It's just always been one of my favorite things about Mr. Toad's Wild Ride that you go to heck and visit these little guys. That is so cool. Getting up close and personal. Look, you can get a fun pic in the Toad car. I never got to ride in the Walt Disney World Mr. Toad, so that's as close I think as I'm ever going to get. Pretty awesome. This stuff is so crazy. Look at this. This Dumbo, for example, is 12 feet wide. Even if you were able to buy something like this, where the heck do you keep it? I saw a few pictures of this particular Dumbo ride vehicle in the Kraft's house. It was in their living room, mounted way up high against the ceiling. That's so cool. Can you imagine having Dumbo up there in the ceiling while you're watching TV? Or even better than a huge elephant, what about a Peter Pan pirate ship, huh? Oh, man. I would love to have one of those. I've always wanted to build a bed that looks like the Peter Pan ride vehicle. Think about it, you can have the backside as the headboard, split it right down here where your feet go, and then this part could be the footboard, or you could turn it into like a little trunk. You know, I'm not saying you cut up a real ride vehicle, just base it off of this. That would be the coolest bed ever. You know, it's funny, I think Allie is small enough, she could actually just lay down on one of the real ride vehicles and take a nap. Look at these guys back here. Animated Small World figurines. Now these weren't from the ride. Supposedly they were used on a parade float from the 1970s at Disneyland. Hey, but that still makes them Disneyland animatronics. Look at those guys. That is pretty cool. And look at this. Do you recognize this guy right here? He's from the Small World clock. I guess they periodically have to replace those little dancing figurines on the clock, and that guy was one of them. That's wild. Ah, another Disneyland trash can. Look at this one. They had to put a sign on it so that nobody would throw trash away in there. Even Allie almost threw a piece of trash in one of these earlier. You gotta watch out for that. Ooh, 1,000 to 1,500. Not bad for a 1990s Disneyland can. Ooh, it still smells like popcorn and churros and love. Wow, this is crazy. They have a whole fleet of Fantasyland vehicles. Look at that Matterhorn bobsled. Oh, wow. See, now that was my bobsled when I was growing up. They should have never stopped using these bobsleds back in 2012 or whenever that was. These were way better, way smoother, and way more comfortable. Memories. These were the ones where you had to cuddle up with someone and sit 2 people per little pod. It was great if you had someone you wanted to cuddle with, but it was awkward if you were stuck riding with someone you were a little bit uncomfortable with. You're there with your friends in the marching band, and you go, all right, who's got the front and who's got the back? Can we sit by ourselves? No. Luckily, they didn't make you ride with complete strangers like that. If they had, I would have been a little bashful. And speaking of bashful, look at this, a Snow White Scary Adventures ride vehicle. Just like the Mr. Toad stuff over there, this came from Walt Disney World. Because sadly, the Magic Kingdom ripped out their Snow White Dark ride a few years ago and exchanged it for the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train out there. There's now just a princess meet and greet where Snow White Scary Adventures used to be, so I guess they didn't need these ride vehicles anymore. And that crafty Kraft family got a hold of one. Whoa, that is so darn cool. I want one. Whoa, check this out over here. It's a lantern from the Mad Tea Party from the 90s, but even better, look at this. This barrel is a seat from the old Chicken of the Sea pirate ship that used to be the centerpiece of Fantasyland back in the 50s and 60s, all the way up to 1982. That is incredible. Not much has ever survived from Chicken of the Sea. There's rumors that they put it in Paris. Nope, that's a separate ship. There's rumors they put it into Peter Pan. Nope, that's separate too. You know where it actually ended up? The dumpster. But not this barrel seat, apparently. That is so cool. I love those attraction posters, even though they're seriously gargantuan. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. Look at the size of these things. Pretty impressive. Ooh, look at this. Here's a statue from Disney World. I think that was part of the mini golf area. Yeah, it's from Fantasia Gardens. Oh yes, that's right. Disney World has its own miniature golf course. Actually, there's more than one. Maybe we should check those out next time we go. Wow, look at this old sign from Fantasyland. That is pretty cool. And you know what else is pretty cool? Look at this. One of the models they used to do the refurbishment on the Snow White ride. That's rad. It's crazy because some of these small models and collectibles can be worth as much money as some of the bigger stuff, like the big signs and ride vehicles and stuff. Not to mention some of this concept artwork. A few pieces like concept artwork for eating areas or concept art for benches, those are a little less expensive. But once you start getting into undeveloped lands or ride concept artwork, the prices start to go up. Oh wow, that's a cool little sign up there. I almost missed that. I didn't see that last time. Actually, honestly, I didn't see half of this stuff last time. And like I said, we were in here the other day for 4 hours. This is an absolutely insane collection. I can't even organize my living room or my closet. I do not understand how you keep track of all this stuff. Keep it organized, keep it in good condition. Whew, maybe that's why they want to get rid of it, huh? All right, guys, we have seen some cool things. Some truly legitimate pieces of Disneyland history. But this next thing we're about to see, with the exception only maybe of the people mover here, it's the best thing of of them all. We've actually seen it together before, but not in its full glory. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is my pleasure to reintroduce you to my friend Cecil, the sea serpent. This is the original sea serpent from Disneyland's submarine voyage. I never knew this, but according to my friend Bob Gurr, he told us the other night, his name is Cecil, the seasick sea serpent. Of course, Cecil can never be this guy's official name because that's the name of a character from a non-Disney cartoon that the Imagineers nicknamed him with. So it's just the sea serpent, but I like Cecil. Well, it's nice to know your name, Cecil. See, we saw Cecil the seasick sea serpent at the Van Eaton booth at the D23 convention last time. But that was just the front part of it. We just saw him like this out there. At this exhibit, we see Cecil in his full glory. Would you look at the size of that serpent? He's gargantuan. He just goes on and on and on. Remind you of anyone? Dude, look at how huge this thing is. This thing's body is almost 50 feet long. That's 10 alleys long. I mean, look down here. There's actually one of the old signs for the submarine voyage right underneath him, and that thing is completely dwarfed by how huge that serpent is. I mean, it takes up as much as half, maybe a little more of this whole floor length. From what I understand, they had this outside in their pool area. That is so friggin' awesome. Can you imagine going outside for a swim with the huge Disneyland submarine voyage sea serpent hanging out with you? That literally sounds like the makings of the greatest pool party of all time. Hey, Cecil? Dude, I love this thing. This thing is my favorite. That right there, this thing is my spirit animal. If I had to come back in the next life as an animal, that would be me. What a thing of beauty. This is one of the coolest things in here. And for those of you who don't remember this and you only remember Nemo, they were talking about sea serpents. You gotta watch out for sea monsters. And if I remember this right, you'd start at the tail and see more and more and more of the monster. You're getting more and more nervous until finally at the end, you see the face. Oh, phew. It's just a silly sea serpent. The ride, his head would be wiggling back and forth, his eyes would be moving back and forth. He actually still works. They were operating him and demonstrating him for us at D23. It was pretty darn cool. The sea serpent reminds me of your fiance, you know, kind of lanky and long and a little bit weird. It's got a long tongue, strange. That is so cool. It was cool seeing him at D23, but seeing him here in his full glory is just so impressive. It's like seeing an old friend after all this time. I never ever knew that anyone had a name for that sea monster until Bob Gurr the other night told us that all the Imagineers called him Cecil the seasick sea serpent. The more you know. And this auction is pretty cool because they're not just selling off Cecil, but look back here by his tail. I should warn you, there's some partial nudity here, folks, so just be aware. But check this out. It's one of the old animatronic mermaids from the submarine voyage. Now listen, I get that today's modern kids probably would ride the old submarine voyage and be like, what the heck, Nemo's way better. But I will never share that opinion. The original submarine voyage had so much imagination, so much creativity, so many interesting characters. Like this mermaid or the sea serpent. And it was such a cool mix of science, like visiting volcanic vents, and fiction, like going to Atlantis. I don't know, something about it just seems so creative. Nowadays with Nemo, I probably ride the submarines every other year or so. Back when they had the original submarine voyage, if I went to Disneyland without riding it, oh man, that would have been one sad day. Okay, wow. We have now completed the circuit around the building. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't really look at, like this. The original model for the Carousel of Progress, or this old Space Mountain Starcade sign. We barely even talked about all the collectibles that are for sale here too. It's just that there's so much stuff to see here. There is no way to see it all or pop it all into just one video. Honestly, if I had the money to buy all of this stuff, I would and build a museum. But the reality is that this collection is so huge, so large, so valuable. There's no way it can go to any one place. It's got to be split up. And you know what the crazy part is about all the stuff we've seen out here? Is that all of this stuff isn't even all of the stuff in in the auction. Some of the stuff didn't even fit in this building, like one of the original keel boats, the Bertha May, who's represented in here by this giant decal, or an old school ticket booth from Disneyland, represented in the front by another decal, both of which are incredible pieces of Disneyland history that are also for sale. There's also a ton more that simply couldn't be displayed, like this old coin-operated pirate gun from New Orleans Square, or hundreds more paper artifacts back there, old Disneyland collectibles up on that shelf. Look at this right here, original Tiki Room script. No way. That is absolutely insane. Look at that, there's even a seating diagram in there. It's all in the more than 300-page catalog in here. Actually, look, if you take a look, you'll see pictures of the ticket booth that is for sale. Wow, and not only do they have one catalog, they even had to supplement the catalog with an extra one because of stuff they forgot they had. Not to mention the Bertha May. Oh, I would have loved to have seen that thing in person. A real Disneyland keel boat. And it can be yours for potentially just $20,000. $20,000. Well, personally, I have no money. Got lawyer bills to pay and whatnot. So I will not be bidding on this stuff. However, I am eternally grateful to the Kraft family and the Van Eaton Galleries for putting all this stuff on display for all of us to come see and smell and take pictures of and with one more time. You know how I mentioned it earlier, the People Mover was one of only two things that kind of got me misty-eyed. I don't know if you've noticed the other ones, but they're right up here. I legitimately got choked up the other day, the first thing, by these parking lot signs. It was so strange. I was thinking, of all the stuff in here, that's what got me? The parking lot signs? But it was just such a huge moment in my childhood, I guess, when we would finally pull into that parking lot. Once you were parked in one of these sections, Happy or Tinkerbell or Minnie or Eeyore, you knew you were gonna have the best day ever. Don't ask me why, just seeing them again brought back this weird, I had that feeling, you know? My eyes actually got sweaty with respect. If I could buy one of these things, you know, other than the People Mover carved there, it'd be one of these parking lot signs. It'd be so cool even just to own one side of one of these, you know? But then again, I guess you wouldn't want to split up the triangles. Alright guys, there's still more stuff here that we haven't even looked at. I mean, literally, posters for lost attractions, signs from lost attractions, plenty of trash cans we haven't examined closely, tons more posters and concept art we didn't have time to look at. There's just so much going on, it's mind-blowing. It could almost make your head implode, just ask Snow White. Ooh, who's the fairest in the land now? Still not you. That's making me uncomfortable. Well, for better or for worse, I think that's just about all we have time for. I know a lot of other people have come and filmed this auction, posted stuff online. We were in Florida for the first 2 weeks of this. And when we finally did come the other day, there was just so much stuff to see. It was so overwhelming. I knew I'd have to come back on a separate day just to film it. There's still a few more days left in the exhibit, so if you have time, come see it. I mean, after all, it is free. And even if you're not going to bid in the auction, they do have quite a few things priced for a little bit less here in the gift shop at the show. You might be able to snag yourself something without having to bid, huh? Hallie and I are taking one last walk around the room, soaking in some of the stuff that we're very unlikely to see in person again. But hey, if any of you out there are gonna buy any of this stuff, I'm always down to come see it at its new home. Maybe go for a spin around the block with you, huh? Thank you guys for watching this video and coming on this adventure with us. It's been really fun to run around in Walt Disney's original Magic Kingdom without really having to set foot in Disneyland at all today. Remember, there's still time to come down and see this exhibit, but if you live too far away, I believe the catalog and a way to bid are online. Just go to vegalleries.com and click on this auction link. Click it! Click it! Hey, you might not win anything, but why not take a shot at it, huh? Alright friends, we've seen the original props. We've revisited some of our favorite ride vehicles. Even relived some childhood trauma. I think it's safe to say that for today, we've done our duty. And now that our brains are totally overwhelmed, we can say goodbye to the That's from Disneyland exhibit. And go home and shrink wow. Make sure you check out all the links down below so that a sea monster won't eat you. And we'll see you all in Random Land. Bye-bye.
Vince. What's
Vince
up?
here is the voice of the new Mega Man.
Meganize me.
Dude, I'm a huge fan of Mega Man, so that means I'm going to be a huge fan of you, Vince.
Whoa, this is very close.
This is really weird. This is mega cool.
This is mega.
To meet you.
It's mega cool to meet you.
You should put that in the show.
Okay.
This is mega cool.
That's
all the time.
We've never done that.
Yeah,
so
do that.
we'll do
See,
it.
I came up with that. Listen, I know it's sad, but I think it's time that I have to go. I've already done my duty. I have to go home and sleep well now. Don't worry about me. You go on. You find someone else to live with, Cecil. You go now. Don't make this any harder than it has to be, buddy. We already said goodbye so long ago. We'll always have Tomorrowland.